What is up, card fighters, and welcome to the Prime Vanguard channel. Today I have an exciting deck profile featuring one of my favorite decks currently in Dragon Empire, which is Dragconnector Grhyaundra. Introduce us in set 2, Illusionless Strife. This deck features Grhyaundra, a Dragon Knight as well as a Dragon unit that come together simultaneously to create a very powerful multi-attacking strategy. Stacking power to your front row, restanding your Vanguard, and taking advantage of very little resources and Dragon Empire's fantastic generic support. This is one of my favorite fun decks that I've currently been playing and I'm ready to showcase to you guys. In this video, I'll be discussing mulligan, combos, as well as my thoughts and process on creating this deck and all the card choices as well as other options you can play while taking a look at this deck and its main strategy. Now I'm going to head over to camera 2 and hop right into this, but you guys know what's coming next. If you enjoy seeing content such as this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit the notification bell so you guys are always seeing my newest videos coming out. Alright you guys, to get this deck profile started off right with, I am playing Grhyaundra's ride line for Grhyaundra. This deck is special because our ride line will be a consistent piece needed to activate our strategy as our Vanguard Gry takes advantage of the grade 2 Andra and the grade 1 Gry unit continuously throughout the game. Going over each unit, starting off with the grade 1 Dragconnector Flameblade Gry has the following ability where it states, if your soul has a child Dragon Andra, when you would ride units in Dragon Andra from the ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand. Auto rearguard circle at the beginning of your battle phase. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Gry in its card name, cost rest this unit, choose one of your rearguards with Andra in its card name, and until the end of turn, that unit can attack from the back row and gets power plus 10,000. Now both Andra and Gry share effects similar to each other for the continuous skill, where if the grade 1's in the soul or the grade 0's in the soul, and it matches the name, you won't have to discard cards from your hand to ride up. This is fantastic because once you pretty much get past the grade 0 to the grade 1, for 2 turns you're not going to have to discard a card from your hand to get to the next grade, meaning you'll have 2 cards extra in your hand for defense, for calling a rear guard, whatever it might be, or just to hold on to pieces later on for future turns. The secondary skill will become more relevant when I explain the grade 3, but essentially speaking, if we have an Andra extra in the deck or on the rear guard circle, we can turn that card to our 4th attack for the turn, giving it 10,000 power and allowing it to attack from the back row. This is important because this is what's going to allow our 4 attack plays once we explain Grhyaundra's effect and the power ability that Andra has himself. Like I stated, the first skill is the same as the grade 1, so I won't be going over that. The secondary skill is just a 5k buff to this card, meaning that combine this with Gry, you've got a 25k beat stick that can attack from the back row, and this is really strong going first because your opponent's going to be at a 10k base. Obviously, if you go second, it's not as powerful, but with the other cards or effects that we have in the deck, we can make that Grhyaundra really scary prior to our Vanguard's attack. And speaking of the Vanguard, I think it's time we discuss the main character of this story. It is our Dragconnector Grhyaundra. This unit has a very powerful ability that states auto Vanguard circle at the beginning of your main phase, cost rest this unit. Choose up to 1 grade 2 or less card with Gry in its card name, and up to 1 grade 2 or less card with Andra in its card name, each from your soul and call them to rear guard circle. And this unit gets auto Vanguard circle. At the end of the battle, your rear guard with Andra in its card name attacked. Put that unit and attack in a rear guard with Gry in its card name into soul, stand this unit, and all of your front row units get power plus 10,000 to the end of the turn. Grhyaundra every single turn will put itself to rest to call it the grade 1 Gry and the grade 2 Andra from the soul to rear guard circle, have them attack with the back row effect from the grade 1 Gry, and then you're going to have the Vanguard restand give 10k to your front row. You get 4 attacks in your turn, you get additional Persona Ride, like early game version of that, on your first turn, and then combined with other cards and effects and obviously triggers, your numbers will continuously go up every single turn. This deck strategy is extremely consistent and very linear. You know what you want to do every single turn, with that 10k buff actually being a pretty big deal with a 4 attack deck like this and other card effects. It works out very well. This deck is surprisingly very strong because you get so much power right away. There's no restrictions to gaining the power, as everything is just name reliant. And because obviously you're playing a deck revolved around, 3 units that all you require you to have Gry and Andra names, you have access to that very easily. This is the most simplistic beatdown deck I've ever seen in standard format because of how easy it is to maintain the power. And there's not really anything your opponent can do to mess with your strategy. Because there's no sort of interruption or anything that your opponent can do to mess with your strategy, you're always going to have access to 2 units that can give you additional attack from the back row, a Vanguard that applies 10,000 power to the front row pre-Persona Ride, and then you can do this every single turn without expelling any counterblast or soul blast for it. Now our best supporting piece to make this strategy work is this next card here, which is Artillery of Duststorm Xaxes. Xaxes has two of the following effects, which read auto front row rearguard circle. At the beginning of your battle phase, counterblast 1. Choose one of your units with Grhyaundra in its card name, and it gets power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. If you chose a unit, draw a card. Auto rearguard circle. When your unit with Grhyaundra in its card name attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. The first effect of Xaxes is what makes this card incredible. That additional 5k buff and that draw is huge. This deck doesn't really have a great way of generating huge card advantage. It's a pure beatdown deck that already has 2 bodies guaranteed every single turn on the board, and then you're just calling out the other cards from your hand continuously onto rearguard circles if you're playing its controller, if they're just attacking your rear guards, to make your formation work. But Xaxes is our best supporting piece because this card makes your Andra a magic number in any situation, and we don't counterblast a lot in this deck, so we can always expel our resources to make Xaxes give additional cards to our hand and gain extra power. And his secondary skill is his most formidable aspect. Because you're guaranteed at least 2 attacks with a Grhyaundra unit, this card will get 10,000 power on its own, and because its effect works in the front row, combine this with the Vanguard, card will always be a 33k minimum attacker against our opponent, and this is before Persona Ride and triggers and other card effects. For my next card, in my favorite order piece right now, it is 3 copies of Drago Resonance. Now, the Drago Resonance normal order is something I've discussed for Dragonic Overlord in the past, but it actually works out very fantastic with this deck. Now, this card states, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets auto Vanguard circle once per turn. When this unit stands, all of your front row units get power plus 10,000 until the end of turn. You keep this skill until the end of the turn. This card combined with our Vanguard Grhyaundra means that we will be applying 20,000 power to our front row every single turn we can get this active. That is actually really huge because this card does not have a cost or a restriction on it in terms of your opponent's grade, meaning that you can go first and then start swinging at your opponent with like 53k columns, 43k columns, insane numbers like that, and your opponent's at a grade 2, and it's going to be incredibly hard for them to guard. On average, you can push your opponent to about 3 to 4 damage with this deck on the first grade 3 turn if you have like perfect setup and you're getting lucky with your triggers. Normally, even if you don't get lucky with triggers, you just get this popping off and you got a good formation, you're still pushing them to like 3-4 damage because it's just insanely high numbers right away. For my next card, I play 1 copy of Defensing Roar. Now, I just want to say this card is not going to be staying in here much longer. Dimensional Transcendence just recently came out at the time that I'm making this video. I plan on replacing this with the Regali's Piece Blitz order or the Twin Cast order from the Dimensional Transcendence set. Whichever one of those, I have to test out both. Probably the Regali's Piece, but because this deck's offense is pretty much like set and we have all the pieces needed to make powerful attacks and maintain our combos, and we just need to work on consistency at this point, I figured I used all the other spaces to improve our deck's defense where it would be weak at because of our, card advantage isn't the best, and Defensing Roar was just the best option at the time. This card applies 10,000 shield to anything and lets you bounce that card back to hand as long as it's not a Sentinel, so we can reuse our triggers for extra defense, we can throw a piece down, then drop this and get it back to our hand, not feel bad about it. Just take advantage of anything to apply extra defense to ourselves, but this card will be being replaced with one of those Regali's Piece Blitz orders, so just be aware of that. For my next card, I am playing 4 copies of Blast Artillery Dragon Brachioforce. Brachioforce is currently a personal choice. I was playing Brachioforce because in this deck, there's no form of control, and also, like I stated, the card advantage is bad, but I wanted to have something like that because Grhyaundra, while it is a pure beatdown deck, I wasn't going to play a card that took away from our strategy, but I also want to play something that was going to naturally improve it. There are certain pieces that you want to draw into as well, and while we have other draw cards in the deck outside of draw triggers, Brachioforce applied control, it gave you a draw, and then because of its on-hit skill and your opponent obviously not wanting to lose rear guards, it was able to force cards out of their hand. But a secondary benefit about Brachioforce is that I remember when I was playing Gandiva, and when I needed something in the early game to like slow the game down until I finally hit grade 3, this is the card that everybody went to. And it's the same thing for this deck. This deck does not do anything up until you hit grade 3 because all of your effects are locked behind your opponent being on grade 3, and then you obviously having a Grhyaundra Vanguard. So because I can't do anything until I hit grade 3, and obviously there are a lot of slots on my board that are already spoken for because of certain cards that I play, I figured I would just play something that could get rid of itself, convert itself into some advantage, and give me some aspect of control. For my next card, I'm playing 4 copies of Melt Knuckle Golem. Knuckle Golem is just the grade 2 version of Xaxes. Its first effect lets you Energy Blast 3 to draw a card, and then it has the same skill as Xaxes, where when you see a Grhyaundra attack, it'll start getting 5k power. This card being a grade 2 version of one of our best cards in the deck in terms of rearguard support means that I had to max out at 4. The Energy Blast 3 to draw is also important because since it happens in the main phase, it gives you the opportunity to draw another piece that you want to put onto the rearguard if your formations get looking a little weak, or you need to, like, you know, trade it out and get like a neutral gain. Now for my next card and the MVP of our grade 1 lineup, I am playing 3 copies of Dancing Princess of Elegant Flames, Justina. Now, Justina is a new card introduced to us in Illusionless Strife, and she has a very powerful effect in this deck. Every nation has one of these, but her ability lets her discard a card from your hand so that you can activate an order from you discard it from your deck, activate it from your drop zone, and then you get the effect of via order. This card is essentially 3 more copies of our Drago Resonance order in a grade 1 form, and this is what makes Drago Resonance searchable. Being able to call this card out to get a booster for one of your rearguard attacks, and then convert Drago Resonance into our cost for the effect from deck is fantastic. It means that if we see this card, we're going to have pretty much full combo ready to go without having to actually draw into Drago Resonance. For my next grade 1, I played 4 copies of Stealth Fiend Shenri. Shenri is a fantastic card advantage piece. Being a 13k booster as well as a card that can convert itself into soul and draw will always be fantastic. In this deck, while we can't control our opponent's board to get them to 1 or less rearguard, it's good in the early game because it can maintain a 21k attack or a 23k attack at our opponent, grade 1, grade 2 turn, and then finally we need to clear up space. We can convert this card into soul and draw. Also, we do play an order in the deck, and we're trying to activate that order every single turn. This card should always be live in the deck, obviously until you don't have access to the order for whatever reason, or if you just don't see your Justinas, then it's just a regular 8k booster, not 18k. For my next grade 1, I am playing 4 copies of our Stealth Dragon Fushimachi Madoka. This is a generic defensive piece in the deck. It becomes a 10k booster and it obviously gains more shield over time, which is huge because your opponent will be putting cards in the drop zone. I know a lot of decks burn through a lot of cards right now and they cycle out very fast. This card is just an additional 15k shield in your deck on top of the other 15k shields you have from your triggers. 4 Sentinels, make sure one of them is Elementaria. Now for my trigger lineup in this deck, I'm playing a total of 8 critical here with 4 normal, 4 effect crits. Because of how high our numbers get in this deck, you need to maximize out on criticals. You're going to be swinging for 48k, 53k attacks, and if you don't have that critical pressure on top of that, those attacks are no longer as scary if your opponent can just go ahead and take it. Maximizing crits in this deck is extremely important to take full advantage of the explosive numbers you're going to have access to very soon. Next up, I play 3 draw triggers. In this deck, it's very important that you see key pieces. You need to see Persona Ride, you need to see Xaxes, Justina, everything I've discussed before. Also, I do want to note that I've seen people play fronts in their Grhyaundra decks, and I think fronts are actually overkill in this deck. Yeah, it's fun to reveal a front on your Grhyaundra turn if it's going perfectly, because then at that point you're swinging for like 68k numbers and your opponent has to PG or just go to 5 damage right away. But in the long run, especially in the early game, hitting fronts did not feel good defensively speaking, unless like you already have your board set up. In the later game, then hitting fronts is fine. Hitting fronts in the early game does nothing for you because remember, you don't really have anything to call outside of Brachio Force to assist you later, or if you want to drop a Knuckle Golem because you don't care about the draw, that's fine too. Draw triggers just felt better defensively speaking and even offensively speaking because they increase your chances of seeing more defensive pieces as well as drawing into pieces that you're going to need later to take full advantage of your offense. I think fronts are overkill in this deck, and you probably shouldn't play those if you want to, unless you were playing like a early game aggro version of this deck, which I wouldn't know how you'd be able to accomplish unless you're playing more copies of Grhyaundra in the deck. But outside of that, draws just work better overall. For my next card, my over trigger is going to be the Dragon Empire OT in this deck. This card actually has really good synergy with some of our other cards because our attack pattern is always our Andra in the back row second, then we swing with our Vanguard first. This way we can apply the effects of our Xaxes and our Golems to power up. So hitting the OT on your Vanguard swinging first means that you'll restand and then you'll have 3 attacks with units that have Grhyaundra in their card name, which will increase the power of your Xaxes or your Golem up by 15,000 instead of the regular 10,000. And then for heals, I play 4 generic heals, the Stealth Dragon Shikitan. Now I'll be discussing mulligan in this deck. This deck is actually very simple with its mulligan. You want to open up with 2 to 3 pieces or cards that can substitute via those cards. We want to open up with 2 to 3 different cards here. And the first of those cards is you want to open up with a Xyz or you want to open up with a Metal Knuckle Golem. And if we have both in hand, we're going to hold on to both. When it comes to our mulligan, remember that we don't have to discard anything until after the first grade 1 ride. So because we can just discard 1 card and then ride up for free for the next 2 turns until we hit grade 3, we can actually hold on to these pieces for a little bit longer because we don't have to worry about losing out on other cards, defensively speaking, to ride up to our opponent. And if we open up with Golem or Xyz, we're going to want full combo with the rest of that, starting off right away. So opening up with a copy of Justina or Drago Resonance is recommended as well. Preferably, I would choose Justina over the Drago Resonance because opening up with an order that has no shield value in a deck like this is not good. But if it happens and you do see it, I personally would just hold on to it. I think that having access to either one of these in the beginning, or if you just have all 3 of these cards, whichever one it might be, would be huge. You'll have to go to wait to get to grade 3 first, obviously, and then you'll take some damage here and there. But you're going to have full combo right away, and you'll easily give your opponent 3-4 damage back, because if you're going first, they're going to be swinging at them for like 43k columns and insane numbers like that. And unless they start hitting like double defensives, even 1 defensive is not enough sometimes to stop the onslaught that this deck can do. Combine that with the 10k power from Resonance, and yeah, your first grade 3 turn is cracked if you hit all the right pieces such as these. Alright you guys, so for our test hand here, we're going to go first. I just gave this deck a nice little power shuffle and got everything moving around, so that this way we can, have an actually fair chance getting a good hand to start off with. So going first and discussing mulligan, we know what we need to see, and we're going to see what our hand looks like here, and then obviously go ahead and show you in real time how this deck works. Now going first, like I stated, Xyz is going to be huge because it's going to make our Grhyaundra really scary. The Madoka is fine depending on if you want to rush against your opponent. Same thing with the Brachiosaurus. You can hold on to all of these cards right here because they can be defensive pieces, and depending on your matchup, you can naturally just go ahead and put those cards on hold depending on what you're playing against. We got a Drago Resonance and we got Shenri. So we actually have a really good starting opening hand here because we have access to our order, our Xyz, we have Shenri, which we can call early to start like drawing cards and hopefully see pieces like our Metal Knuckle Golem to maximize our full offense. Alright y'all, so our deck is ready to go. Let's go ahead and draw for turn. We open up with another Shenri. That's actually pretty good. And just for that, we can't get rid of Xyz or the order. I only have to discard once, and I think in this situation, it's okay to give up the, I'm going to give up the Madoka here, actually, because I don't have another piece in my hand that I can use for offensively speaking, and I think Brachiosaurus can be better later. So until I get another offensive piece, I'll just discard my Madoka to ride up. I don't have to discard anymore after this because of Grhyaundra's effect, so it's okay to give up the Madoka. I have 3 in deck as well. Get our energy generator, the opponent takes their turn. Let's take a point of damage here. It's a critical trigger. That's perfectly fine. We'll start our turn. We got a Metal Knuckle Golem, so we have full combo here. Our Vanguard's effect will kick in. We don't have to discard, and we can go ahead and ride into Grhyaundra. Now, we can put a little bit of pressure on the opponent. I'm going to call it a Stealth Fiend Shenri. I'm going to assume that they don't have any other rear guards on the field because we only get attacked once. So this is going to be 23k at the opponent. We'll go ahead and drive check here and see what we get. We get a critical trigger, which is actually really huge. We'll give everything to Grhyaundra. Then Shenri will go ahead and use her effect now because we have to make space for Grhyaundra the next turn. We draw another card. We drew a heal trigger, and that's fine. They'll go ahead, they'll take their turn. They'll attack us. If they're only attacking 1 time, you really don't need to go past 2 damage here. I'm actually going to go ahead and block this attack with the critical trigger we guarded with early, because unless I'm thinking about drawing to another Xyz, which I just highly doubt is going to happen, then I have no reason to take the other damage. So I'll block this here. They'll do their drive check. It's nothing. And then we'll start our turn. We'll go ahead. We stand. We draw. I got a Madoka. And then we just ride up to the grade 3 for free. I forgot to do this the last couple of times, but we went first. So I think we only energy charged twice. So we should have 6 energy. That's important because Metal Knuckle Golem does use Energy Blast. And yeah, we can just go ahead and set up for a full combo here. Once we ride up, we immediately go into our main phase. Remember that this happens at the beginning of your main phase, so you have to do this right away. You'll rest the Vanguard and you'll call Grhyaundra. I called them like this, depending especially on what my formation is looking like. Sometimes you can do it like that if you want to put something behind the Vanguard, but the Vanguard attack I normally do not care about, so. And I have the order in my hand, so it's not going to matter. But I call them like this, and then we can set up our board the way we need to. So Melknuckle Golem is weaker than Xaxes. I'm going to call Xaxes here, does nothing. And then I'll go ahead and call the Melknuckle Golem before I call anything else. Golem's effect will kick in. We will Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. We got a critical trigger, that's perfectly fine. And then I'm gonna hold on to Madoka for defensive reasons naturally, and I'll just go ahead and call out Shenri. Now, before we go into our battle phase, we'll activate our order, Drago Resonance. Drago Resonance will then go ahead and kick in and apply the effect to our Vanguard, where once we restand, we get 10,000 power to our front row. So our hand's a little low, but we're easily going to fix that right away with all of these effects going on. So now that we go into our battle phase, a couple of things happen. This is really important. Gry goes to rest. We'll give additional 10,000 power to our Unison Dragon Grhyaundra. Grhyaundra has 5,000 power because our Vanguard has, Grhyaundra in its name. And then the effect of Xaxes kicks in. We'll counterblast 1. I'm going to choose, obviously, the Grhyaundra in the back row. So this unit goes up to about 20,000 here. And then I get to draw a card. I drew another heal trigger. That's not the best, but we guarded early and we're pushing really hard. Shenri's going to get 5,000 power because she saw an order get played this turn. And we're going to perform our first attack. So this is going to be 30,000 to our opponent's, grade 2 Vanguard. They'll take it. And then the effect of our Vanguard will kick in. We'll go ahead and move these into the soul, and we restand here. Now the effect of our Vanguard, Grhyaundra, happens first, so we'll give 10,000 power to our front row. Then the effect of the order kicks in next, that's additional 10,000 power to the front row. We can then go ahead and attack. Since you're going first, your attack pattern doesn't matter because Melknuckle Golem as well as Xaxes will not get their power-up effects because your opponent's not grade 3 yet. So it doesn't matter how you choose to attack in this case. And I don't play fronts in this deck, so I'll swing with Xaxes first. This will be 33 at the opponent. Then I'll swing in my Vanguard next. This will be 33 at them. Again, Twin Drive check first, critical trigger. We'll give critical to Vanguard, obviously power to our Melknuckle Golem. Second check, we hit the OT. That is really cracked right now. Move from game to draw a card. We drew into our Sentinel, restand. Swing again at the opponent, do Twin Drive, first check, Defensing Roar, that's really good, a second check, another PG. So defensively speaking, our hand is actually really good right now. And then obviously the million power is going to go to Melknuckle Golem, and then Golem will go ahead and attack our opponent. And it's up to you at the end of the battle if you want to give it to Shenri or not. I actually feel like because of how strong my hand is right now, I don't want to give her up because I'd rather have that booster for next turn. This was a very cracked turn with this deck. I mean, hitting the OT, getting combo already, as well as having just a really solid formation. Yeah, this turn was cracked. I think our opponent is at 5 damage or they're dead. That's how confident I am in this setup right here. Because we pulled crit, we pulled OT. That's really scary that they have to deal with. And the numbers are already really high unless they hit a defensive trigger prior to the Xaxes attack, which would have stopped one of them. They would have had to deal with the Vanguard attack with the crit on it and the additional power and the million power to the other unit right here. This, however, is just a showcasing on how Grhyaundra works, you guys. Tell me what you guys think about this deck in the comment section below. And tell me what you guys are doing with your own Grhyaundra decks. Let me know if there are any tips or tricks on how I can make this deck better and what you think about my build. With that being said, card fighters, I'll catch you later. Peace.